The most expensive lies aren't the ones we tell others, they're the ones we tell ourselves. That seemingly harmless "I'll start tomorrow," that reasonable sounding "I'm too busy right now," that comforting "it's not the perfect timing," these aren't just words. They're the silent architects of a life filled with quiet desperation and loud regrets. Napoleon Hill, after studying over 500 of the world's most successful individuals across 20 years of intensive research, discovered what he called the silent assassination of potential, the way excuses systematically dismantle dreams while making us feel justified in the destruction. Let me show you how this silent cost compounds in your life right now. That business idea you've been postponing for 6 months? It's not just an unrealized dream, it's approximately $27,000 in lost revenue based on industry averages for similar ventures. That difficult conversation with your business partner you've been avoiding for 3 weeks? It's cost your company roughly $8,400 in operational inefficiencies and missed opportunities. That fitness program you've been meaning to start since January? The medical costs of delayed health intervention average around $12,600 over 5 years. These aren't imaginary numbers, they're the calculated price tags of inaction, the real dollars and cents that excuses steal from your future while you're not watching. The mathematics of excuse-making reveals a terrifying truth about human psychology. Every excuse carries not just a single cost but what Hill identified as the compound interest of regret. When you excuse yourself from taking that career risk today, you're not just losing today's potential gain, you're losing all the compounded opportunities that would have grown from that initial courage. The relationship you avoid mending today doesn't just remain broken, it deteriorates further, requiring more effort to repair tomorrow. The skill you postpone learning today doesn't just remain unlearned, it becomes harder to acquire as technological advancements accelerate around your stagnation. But here's what makes excuses particularly insidious: they feel so reasonable in the moment. Your brain, in its endless quest to protect you from discomfort and potential failure, manufactures these justifications with such elegance and logic that you genuinely believe you're making wise choices. "I need more preparation" sounds like prudence rather than fear. "The timing isn't right" appears strategic rather than avoidant. "I'm waiting for better circumstances" seems patient rather than passive. This self-deception is the most brilliant feature of the excuse mechanism. It convinces you that you're being responsible while you're actively being irresponsible with your potential. Napoleon Hill identified what he called the 5 silent taxation systems that excuses impose on every aspect of your life. The first is the financial tax, the actual dollars and opportunities that slip through your fingers with each justification. The second is the time tax, the irreversible moments and experiences that are lost forever to delay. The third is the relationship tax, the connections that weaken, the trust that erodes, the intimacy that fades through avoidance. The fourth is the health tax, the physical and mental deterioration that occurs when you excuse yourself from self-care. The fifth, and most dangerous, is the identity tax, the gradual transformation into someone who doesn't follow through, who doesn't keep promises to themselves, who becomes the very person they never wanted to be. Let me make this painfully concrete. Consider the excuse "I'm too tired to exercise today." The immediate cost seems minimal, just one missed workout. But the compound cost includes weaker muscles, reduced cardiovascular health, lower energy tomorrow, making another excuse more likely, the psychological impact of breaking a commitment to yourself, the reinforcement of an identity as someone who doesn't prioritize health, and the modeling of this behavior for those who look up to you. What appears as a simple justification in the moment actually sets in motion a cascade of negative consequences that extend far beyond the initial decision. The neuroscience behind excuse-making reveals why it's so difficult to overcome. When you face a challenging task, your brain's amygdala registers it as a potential threat. To protect you from this perceived danger, it activates what researchers call the excuse generation network, a series of cognitive processes designed to create reasonable-sounding justifications for avoidance. This isn't a character flaw, it's a biological protection mechanism that once kept our ancestors safe from physical danger but now often protects us from growth and achievement. The most successful people Hill studied weren't immune to this mechanism, they had simply developed what he called excuse interception protocols that allowed them to recognize and override these automatic protective responses. Now, here's the revolutionary insight from Hill's research. The difference between high achievers and chronic excuse makers isn't the absence of excuses but the presence of what he called excuse alchemy, the ability to transform justification energy into action fuel. When average people feel the urge to make an excuse, they surrender to it. When exceptional people feel that same urge, they recognize it as a signal that they're on the verge of something important, that they're about to grow, that they're approaching the edge of their comfort zone where all meaningful progress occurs. Hill developed what he called the excuse audit system, a meticulous process for identifying and quantifying the real costs of your justifications across 7 key life domains: financial health, physical vitality, relationships, career growth, personal development, contribution to others, and spiritual fulfillment. Most people who complete this audit discover they're paying between 30 to 50% of their potential in what Hill termed the excuse overhead, the systematic tax that excuses impose on their quality of life. But understanding the problem is only the beginning. Let me give you Hill's exact framework for what he called the excuse elimination protocol, the specific system used by the most accomplished individuals he studied to stop the silent financial and emotional bleeding. The first component is the excuse recognition training. You must develop what Hill called excuse radar, the ability to spot excuses in their earliest formation, before they solidify into justifications for inaction. This begins with vocabulary monitoring. Certain words and phrases almost always signal excuse-making. I would, but, if only, when things settle down, the problem is. Training yourself to notice these linguistic patterns creates a crucial window of interception between excuse formation and action avoidance. The second component is the cost visualization practice. For every excuse that arises, you immediately calculate and visualize its actual financial, temporal, and emotional costs. That "I'm too tired to network" excuse isn't just about missing one event, it's about the compound cost of weakened professional connections over months and years. That "I don't have time to learn new skills" justification isn't just about today's schedule, it's about the obsolescence tax you'll pay when your current skills become irrelevant. Making these costs visible and emotionally real transforms abstract justifications into concrete financial decisions. The third component is the minimum action principle. When an excuse arises, you commit to the smallest possible version of the avoided action. Don't feel like exercising? Commit to 1 minute. Don't feel like working on your business plan? Commit to 1 sentence. Don't feel like having that difficult conversation? Commit to sending 1 text message. The minimum action principle defeats excuses by making the required effort feel trivial while preserving momentum. The fourth component is the identity reinforcement system. With every action you take despite having excuses, you consciously reinforce your identity as someone who follows through. I am someone who exercises even when tired. I am someone who has difficult conversations when necessary. I am someone who takes action despite imperfect conditions. Identity level change is the only change that lasts, because when your actions conflict with your identity, the identity eventually changes to match the actions. The fifth component is what Hill considered the master key, the purpose clarity foundation. When your why is powerful enough, your how reveals itself. When you're connected to a purpose that matters deeply to you, excuses lose their power because they're not just preventing action, they're preventing you from becoming who you're meant to be and making the difference you're meant to make. Over the next 30 days, I challenge you to implement what I call the Excuse Freedom Protocol. Each day, you'll practice 3 simple disciplines. First, morning excuse anticipation. Identify the excuses likely to arise that day and pre-commit to your response. Second, real-time excuse interception. When excuses arise, use the cost visualization and minimum action principles. Third, evening excuse accounting. Review your day and calculate how much you saved by choosing action over excuse. What you'll discover is what Hill described as the ultimate financial and personal freedom, the realization that most of the constraints you blamed for your lack of progress were never as solid as they appeared. They were reinforced by your excuses rather than created by your circumstances. When you stop excusing, you start achieving, not because your situation changes immediately, but because your relationship with your situation transforms completely. The person you're capable of becoming has been waiting patiently for you to stop making excuses and start taking action. That version of you doesn't have fewer challenges, they just have better responses to those challenges. They see excuses for what they are, not explanations but surrenders, not reasons but capitulations, not truths but the most expensive lies we tell ourselves. Your future is too valuable to continue paying the silent tax of excuses. The wealth, not just of money, but of experience, relationship, and fulfillment that you've been sacrificing to your justifications is waiting for you to claim it. The mathematics is simple. Stop paying the tax, start collecting the dividends. Stop excusing, start living. The transition begins not with a massive leap but with a single, excuse-free choice. Make that choice today.